Hello and welcome to today's history. We'll be learning about the Industrial Revolution, and part of that, one of the key factors was transport. And during the Industrial Revolution is when trains and the railways began. So we're going to be learning a little bit more about that today. Our aim is to describe how and why the railway network in Britain grew and changed over time. And our success criteria by the end of this lesson, we can order significant events on a timeline of railway history, and we can find some of Great Britain's railway lines on a map. That's two activities today. Activity 1 will be to find the correct dates for the key railway events in Britain and to put these onto the Google Drive. So during this PowerPoint, grab a pen and a piece of paper and jot down any dates and what's happening at those times. There's also an optional activity. For this, you need to open another page in your browser and look on Google Maps or Google Earth. Okay, so the first and the earliest railway lines, what do we already know about them? We know that transport was one of the key factors causing the Industrial Revolution. And where was the first railway line? The first railway line, as we know it, was between Manchester and Liverpool. What was it used for? It was partly used to transport goods between Manchester and Liverpool. So Liverpool has a big port. So things from all the way around the world would come in at Liverpool. They could be put onto the railway and taken straight to Manchester where they could be manufactured. So that might be cotton come overseas, land in Liverpool, come across to Manchester, and the cotton would be taken off and taken to the cotton mills for manufacturing. And then those goods, once they were manufactured, would be able to be taken back via train to Liverpool and around the world. So how did it help Manchester and Liverpool grow? By providing the products in Manchester to go back overseas, it made Liverpool richer, and by providing the materials to go to the factories and make into something new, it made Manchester richer. So by moving those goods in and out of Manchester and Liverpool and across the world, it made both cities richer, and the richer they were, the more factories they could have, the more housing they could have, the bigger they become, and also the more important they become. Would Manchester and Liverpool be the cities they are today without the railway? The short answer is no. Without the railway, they wouldn't have been made nearly as rich. They wouldn't have been able to help each other during the Industrial Revolution. The earliest railways, we need to go back in time a little bit before steam engines. Before steam railways, there were other types of railways. Horses pulled mine carts along tracks in coal mines in the 1700s and early 1800s. So these weren't powered by anything other than a horse, but there would have been tracks down there and some wagons that fit onto the tracks, and the horses could just pull them one end to the other. The Oystermouth Railway was the first passenger carrying line using horses to pull carriages in 1807. Again, there would have been tracks and there would have been carriages, but they would have been pulled by horses rather than steam. So you've got your first couple of dates there. I'd pause the video and make some notes on those first couple of dates for when you go to your Google Forms to complete your task. Okay, so the growth of the railways. After the success and promotion of steam locomotives and the opening of the Liverpool and Manchester railway line in 1830, the people of Britain were gripped by railway fever. Soon private companies were opening hundreds of railway lines around the country, and the development of railways was booming. This is known as railway mania. The 1840s saw the biggest growth in the railways. Hundreds of new railway lines were planned, and companies sought to make lots of money by opening their own railway lines. Many new laws and regulations were introduced during this time to make sure that the railways were safe to travel on. Okay, you've got two more dates there and key events. Jot those down before moving to the next slide. The growth of the railways, the Big Four. At the start of World War I, 1914 to 1918, the government took control of all the railways in Great Britain, and this continued until 1921. So the government, rather than smaller companies, now had control over the railways. From the 1st of January 1923, all the railway lines in Great Britain were grouped into four main companies. So the government looked after all of them, but then they were split into 4 different areas. These were known as the Big Four. The first one was the Great Western Railway on the west coast of England. The second was the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, so it went all the way from London through the Midlands up to Scotland. The third was London and North Eastern Railway, so this was from London and kept to the east coast mainly. And then there were the Southern Railways, all the way across the southern part of the UK. Although they were all joined together, these 4 groups were run as 4 different companies. Okay, make sure you've jotted those dates down before we move on. The growth of the railways, nationalisation. In 1948, all the railways were nationalised. This means that the government control and manage them. The Big Four were then merged together to form British Railways, later called just British Rail. Although many of the main railway lines remained, lots of smaller ones were closed down because they were not making enough money. So this means that those 4 companies that we just learnt about were all made into one company, British Railways, and the government again took complete control in 1948. The growth of the railways, privatisation. Between 1994 and 1997, British Rail was privatised. This means it was no longer run and managed by the government, but by a larger number of smaller companies who bought a share in it. Since privatisation, most of the railway lines in Great Britain remain the same, but some new ones have also opened. So it went from lots of different companies, then back to government control, to 4 companies, then back to government control, and now it's privatised again. Lots of smaller companies are running it. So the railway network. The railway lines of Great Britain run within their own regions, for example, the southwest, and across different regions, linking up with most of the country across the whole network. Based on the location of the cities they visit, can you work out which main railway lines are which from the list below? Use a map of Great Britain and look at the compass to help you. So at this point, if you want to make a quick note and then go on to do your optional activity of looking on a map to find these, this is a good time. So these are the railway lines: the East Coast Main Line, the Cross Country Route and the West Coast Main Line. These are some of the cities that they visit: London, Birmingham, Liverpool and Manchester and Glasgow. Are they mainly in the east? Are they going across the country, or are they mainly on the west coast? And the second set, London, Leeds, York, Darlington, Newcastle and Edinburgh. Are they mainly on the east coast? Are they across the country, or are they on the west coast? And finally, Bristol, Birmingham, Sheffield, Leeds and York. Are they across the country? Are they east coast or west coast? If you want to pause the video and do the optional activity, you can do that now. Okay, let's join them up. So on the east coast, we've got London, Leeds, York, Darlington, Newcastle and Edinburgh. Although Leeds and York are reasonably inland, most of the cities there are on the east. Then the cross-country route includes Bristol, Birmingham, Sheffield, Leeds and York, reasonably central along the country. Then the west coast includes London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester and Glasgow. Again, London is on the east coast, but it's a main city, and most of the other cities are on the west coast. So our challenge: which line do you think the Flying Scotsman Express passenger service runs on? It says click here to reveal, but I don't think the link's working. No, it's Edinburgh to London. So the Flying Scotsman Express goes straight to Scotland from London. The Stockton to Darlington Railway Line. The Stockton to Darling Railway Line was the first ever passenger carrying line. It is shown marked in black on this map. The red lines show some of the railway lines as they are today. Can you find the original railway line on your map? So again, this is an optional activity if you want to find that. Pause the video and find it now. So finally, here are your tasks. Activity 1, Find the correct dates for the key railway events in Great Britain. Click onto your Google Forms, use the notes that you've made to match up those key events. And your optional activity that you may have done as we're going along, or you may choose to do now, is to locate some of the main railway lines on the map. Don't forget to submit your answers and tell us on Class Dojo once you've completed that. Have a great day.